Welcome to Perspectives El Paso. I'm Leon Blevins, Professor of Government at El Paso Community College. I've been doing this program since early 2008, if I remember correctly. And here we are in this period of time. We're now into November of 2015. I have a guest with me today that goes back in my experiences of teaching here at El Paso Community College to 1973. I started teaching here in 1972. It was a new school. Started having first classes in 1971. In 1973, a young man walked into my class named David Davis. And a very friendly, outgoing person. Most of my students, like he, were Vietnam veterans, had just come back from Vietnam. And it was an interesting experience, to say the least. Now, let's come to David Davis. One day he told me he was, I guess you'd say, an entrepreneur. He said, I'm starting my own business. And I said, what kind of business are you doing? He said, dealing with plants and helping them to grow. I said, okay. And he said, I just got a contract with Travis Crawford Buick, and I'm watering their plants at their dealership on Montana. I said, well, that's great that you have a new business going. So here I have David Davis. Dave, good to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me, Dr.
And you blossomed from there, right?
Oh, yeah, I blossomed in more ways than one.
And became a plant specialist of all things.
Wow.
You could never have imagined that you would build a career out of that, did you?
I thought the interior scape part of my career has always been a blessing and a major interest to me.
Okay.
Inventing novel ways of taking care of plants and developing self-watering techniques, all that technical stuff that goes along with that industry.
Okay.
I've always been intrigued with that and inventing new stuff. Like we invented a invisible macrame, where it gives you the impression that the plant is hanging suspended in animation, but with no visible means of support.
Oh my goodness.
And then we developed a floating pot that looks like it's floating right through glass. Half of it is on the inside of the building and the other half is on the outside of the building.
You're a very creative person.
Oh, well, a lot of it came from you.
No, my audience likes to know a little bit about the people that I interviewed. Tell us, are you a native El Pasoan, and where did you go to school before you went off to Vietnam?
I occupied a lot of the different high school establishments here.
So you were here in El Paso?
In El Paso, right.
Now tell us about coming to community college. It was a brand new school. How did you find that?
Well, like we had discussed at a different time, I needed the community college to build my confidence level up. It was the community college that gave me the confidence to think that I might be successful in college. I had no inkling that I would ever when I first started at the community college, I started with one class.
Okay.
Because I didn't think that I would be able to handle that one class. And as it turned out, that wasn't the case. It was after that first class, I knew this is going to be okay. I'm going to be able to do all right here.
Many years later, one of my former students went to work for the college, and she came up with a phrase in some kind of meeting, the best place to start. It turned out that way for you, didn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
And, what I would wish for the student body of the community college today is that they learn a little bit about the history of where the college came from, how it came about. It was not an easy, everybody looks around, they see these huge buildings and beautiful offices, and that's not where we came from.
Well, I've done some television programs on that very subject. And we started at Logan Heights with the old Army buildings, and on the rock pile, didn't even have some sidewalks in some places and so on. And then here you are today. And by the way, I need to let the audience know that you've worked with the senior adult program here for a number of years and teaching courses and classes on
Right. I
on
am
this
a
very
gardening instructor for the seniors.
thing? A gardening instructor for the seniors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I brought some mums today. My wife purchased recently. I said, I'm going to take those and use them as a centerpiece for an interview
They're beautiful.
with a plant specialist, okay? And so here we are. And then you brought something to show off. So tell us about this. What are we looking at
Well,
here?
this is the newest product line that Modern Plant Concepts has started into. It is an aeroponic tower, and the way it works, I don't know if they can see the basin. There's a basin underneath the
That's filled with water?
yeah, it's filled with about 25 gallons of water.
Okay.
There's a pump that sits beneath this column, and the pump pumps the water all the way up to the top and dribbles the water down on top of these net pots.
Okay.
You can see that the net pots are sitting in a soilless rock wool. It is completely 100% organic. It is not organically grown. By definition, something that's organically grown must be grown in soil, organic soil. It's not organically grown, but it is 100% organic.
Now this is stackable. How high can you go with this?
14 feet.
Wow, that's well beyond the ceiling in this
yeah.
room.
Oh yeah.
And this is
60
outdoor.
plants.
You can do this indoor.
You can do it indoor or outdoor.
And outdoor, you're going to get the wind, so that would be a problem if you stack them. That tall.
Not really.
Oh, really? Okay, now you can plant different things here.
Right.
Now, are most of these edible?
Yes. Oh yes. Everything that we put in there is edible.
And what is this?
That's I believe that's chard.
Chard.
And this is a multicolored lettuce.
Okay.
And this is kale.
Okay.
On that chart in the back here, you see basil and mint, peppers, eggplant, rosemary, the different kinds of chard. I think one of them is called Red Russian. And anything that you see in the grocery store that you can buy, you can grow.
Now, there are different kinds of gardens. You know, there's vegetable gardens, there's rose gardens, all of these kind of things. Which you lean toward the edible kinds of gardens, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. In the container, mine is called Container Gardening for Seniors for Healthy Living. And what I try to teach my seniors is that there is no limitation on what you can grow. All you need to do is follow some very, very basic guidelines. And that's what we get into. I teach the very, very basics on how to grow stuff in a container, and then we take them to the garden that we have at Via Verde, the multi-purpose center, and they have hands-on experience with the garden.
Well, you know, at the Via Verde campus, what used to just be a bunch of cement between the buildings there, they've developed a community garden.
Right.
And every year we see students down there with biology instructors, and some of those biology instructors are my former students also.
Exactly.
They're handing out seeds and packets of things. Have you been there on some of those events?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in fact, a lot of the biology instructors, we trade information about things like the blue-tailed fly is a special kind of insect that can create compost very, very quickly. And when you're trying to generate a large amounts of compost, because compost is the #1 amendment to any soil, you add that along with some other ingredients into the soil, and you've changed the complexion of the soil.
Okay. Tell me about some success stories with people that you've taught how to do some of these. And you mentioned seniors. Do you have some that have special needs, such as they're in wheelchairs?
Oh yes,
and things like that?
The Modern Plant Concepts, the company that I work with, they help fund the construction of the gardens at the Paisano Greens.
Okay.
It's the senior center that's right next to the Coliseum, across the street from the zoo. And those gardens that we installed down there are called keyhole gardens. And they're specially designed so that someone who is wheelchair bound can actually roll into the garden That's why they call it a keyhole. There's a space for the wheelchair to go into, and then they have accessibility to almost 2/3 of the garden from that one location.
Don't you have some that say, I can't do this, I can't do this? And then you're teaching them they can do it?
Not so many that say they can't. A lot of them, they do a hide and watch. They will sit back and watch and see what somebody else does.
Okay.
And once they see somebody else doing it, then they go ahead.
You may have some also that have had gardens in their previous life before they became disabled.
Right.
Okay. And so they had a garden. We bought a house in 1975 on the east side, and there was a garden in the backyard. And it worked pretty well for us for a while, and growing tomatoes and some things. And we always had to fight the bugs. Tell us about fighting bugs. Do you have to fight bugs with all of this?
Oh, yes. I mean,
how do you deal with that? How do you spray? What kind of spray do you use?
Well, again, in our class, we use an organic pesticide that was formulated by several master gardeners. It's not approved by the Master Gardener Association, but it is a very, very effective pesticide that once it's dry, it has no residual. Consequently, you can spray it on food product, wash the product off, and it's gone.
Okay. Several years ago, I interviewed David Turner, I believe his name, a master gardener.
He was
David?
The president of the Master Gardener Association.
He is president?
I was there, yeah.
Oh, okay. And he told us quite a few things I hadn't thought about, I don't think about it, with different categories. We did talk about different categories of plants. Which plant do you seem to be most fascinated by? Gives you
that's a difficult question.
Well, I like to ask difficult questions. Which one have you worked with before? Is this the most exciting thing you've done?
This is by far the most exciting thing that we've ever been involved with, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Plants like this plant was a seedling in a greenhouse less than a week ago. And look how big it's gotten in less than a week.
Well, I see students at community college walking away from that community garden with those kind of things.
Right.
And they're so excited. They've got something, and they've got to try to keep it alive.
Exactly. Yeah. It's something that I think it's an internal thing that everybody is really wanting to get back to the natural way of things.
Oh, more and more, yes. I took botany in college. I took biology, animals and all that stuff in high school and in college, and I took botany. And I have some allergies, but I found it fascinating to learn about these plants and what they do. And even on public radio this morning coming to school, they were talking about the need to plant more trees. We've heard about Arbor Day and all of these things.
Right.
And one lady was discussing the fact that she had helped organize something about planting trees near power plants to try to soak up some of the pollution, and talked about how many million trees you have to plant if you're going to do that. So they're trying to get more people to do less damage to the Amazon rainforest.
Exactly.
And to plant more plants where there haven't been very many before.
Right.
Now here we live in an arid area. We get only a few inches of rain per year.
Yeah, somewhere between 4 and 10 inches of rain.
Right.
It's not very much.
And so most of the natural vegetation has been along the river. Tell me about something of this, the ecology of this area with regard to growing plants.
Well, and that, not to beat a dead horse, but that brings us right back to this tower. If a marine pump is installed in the tower and it's a DC generated pump,
okay.
It can be hooked up to a photovoltaic cell, and then this tower with a rain harvesting system becomes completely off grid. It is no longer dependent on local electricity. It has a zero footprint.
Okay.
Well, not zero. It's 2.5 foot wide, and as tall as, like I was telling you before, 14 feet. It is the designer of this. His name is Tim Blank, and he has done an amazing job of coming up and formulating this particular system. In El Paso, this unit uses approximately 250 to 300 gallons of water a year. It sounds like a lot, But in one
No,
rain in El Paso, you get more, you can collect more than 250 gallons of water. And it happens within seconds. I mean, how many times have you been out there and turned around and the rain is gone?
Right.
It's here and then it's out of here.
But one of the things about gardening is commitment.
Right.
You have to be committed. These are babies. You have to take care of these.
Right.
They get stronger as they grow older and
Not
larger.
so much with this system, because this system is automated. It has its own timer.
Oh, okay.
And so the water comes on periodically and turns off periodically. The nutrients are applied when you add the water to the soil to the system.
Okay.
This is a soilless mix. There's no soil.
Okay.
It's just water and air.
Well, there are people out there want to know how to contact you. You have a telephone number or a website? You got a
certainly.
website on here
We do.
somewhere. Tell us what it is.
It's modernplantconcepts.com. And the Tower Garden is pjd.towergarden.com.
Okay. Well, it'd be interesting to get some feedback. Now, you've been on Mary Yanya's show, Mature Living.
Yes, I have.
Have you gotten some feedback of people calling you and saying, I want to know more?
Absolutely.
And how can I get one of these? How much are they?
In fact, that's how I wind up with so many more students.
What kind of expense are you talking about if you buy a tower 7 feet tall or something?
I think that the small one, which is 5.5, 6 feet tall, retails for about $45 a month. You can buy it in installments.
Okay, okay. Can you grow tomatoes here?
Oh, absolutely. In fact,
What do you do when they start getting yay big?
Well, what happened in my particular case was the trellis broke.
Oh, you put it next to a trellis. Okay.
No, you surround the cage. You put a cage trellis around the outside of this.
Okay.
And this is my first year growing tomatoes. I have never grown tomatoes on a tower before. And I wasn't real sure what to do.
Yeah.
There's 20 pockets on this tower. And what I did, to my chagrin, was I planted 20 tomatoes. Big mistake, because they had to be thinned out as we went along, because there were tomato plants that took over everything.
Oh, sure.
And we still have tomatoes that we're still harvesting today. We will probably be harvesting well into December.
Oh, my word. They taste better, don't they?
They do.
Oh,
they do. The tomatoes that we have harvested are a sweeter tomato than the tomatoes that you get in the store. And the ones that we're growing are heirloom tomatoes. They're not, they have no HMO. They have not been, they haven't been fooled with.
Oh, okay.
They haven't been genetically altered.
Okay.
Okay, that's one of the big things in growing plants organically is to have something that's clean. It doesn't have any pesticides. It doesn't have any chemicals in it. And the cool thing about this is you are in complete control of your food source. Huh. How cool is that?
Let me bring up another issue with regard to gardening. I've had relatives and colleagues and friends that have gardened for therapy.
Oh yeah.
It's a stress reduction kind of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Taking care of these babies. Okay, talk about that. Some of the people that you've worked, don't you find some of them are doing it for therapy?
You know, we had a gardening class. We have a class at the Portables at Villa Verde, and then we take everybody from the gardening class to the Villa Verde Community Multi-Purpose Center. Okay. That's where our EPCC garden is for that class.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things, we were covering the plots, creating hoop houses. This is just one of the things that is on this list of things that I was telling you about.
Dave has a long list of things he wanted to talk about today, and we only have 28 minutes. All right, we can't talk about cactus, and we don't want to talk about weeds and some of these other things. So, what's your favorite? We have a few minutes left, Dave. What kind of things do you think our audience should know about with regard to this?
With gardening.
And raising plants and eating plants. This is where it all began. The oldest garden story is the Garden of Eden.
That's true. That's true. You nailed that one on the head. The only thing, well, in our class, we discuss water retention a lot. Water is a big deal here.
Oh, sure.
We do not have a lot of it, and what we do have, we need to cherish it. And so what we've discovered is that from several government agencies, and I don't think I should mention which one, but several government agencies have donated to us in the Master Gardener Association and also to the community college paper that has been not simply shredded, but it's been pulverized. Okay. It is simply, it looks like and feels like dust. Well, when that paper is added back to the soil, it has a water retention rate of about 50%.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so you wind up cutting your water bill. Okay, you lay this paper down, it becomes, if it's thick enough, it becomes a weed barrier, okay, where weeds will not grow through it. And then after several years, it can be turned into the ground to help amend the soil. It's a win-win kind of deal.
Well, of course, the very origin of paper in most cases is from trees.
Correct.
From plant life.
Right.
And recycling.
It is the carbon, yeah.
Okay. I've had Myra Cordero, I believe she's been married, I don't know what her last name is now, on this program, and she leads the environmental services on our campus for recycling.
Correct.
And you know her, evidently.
Yep. And
so we're always interested in how we can reuse something that has been used before.
Well, and the number one complaint about the paper was they were afraid that the ink was
would damage the use of it.
Right. But as it turns out, the Congress, in its infinite wisdom, passed a law saying that all federal agencies have to use a biodegradable ink. Mm-hmm. So there's no problem with the ink on the paper anymore.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
That would be a question I would have. How many others are in this field that you're in that you cross paths with from time to time and you're sharing ideas?
Well, I do this on a daily basis, so I mean, I'm constantly plugged in with.
Well, you told of things that you'd help develop
right.
With the screening and all of these kind of things.
Right.
Any other items we should know about in the last few minutes? Maybe you have a creative idea while you're just sitting here thinking about what can I do next. Right now your emphasis is on this.
Right.
Definitely on this.
Right, one. Definitely on this, because this is something that is so small, and any senior, let me digress a little bit.
Okay.
I did not believe that this was going to work. One of the seniors brought it to me 2-3 years ago, and I tested it because I thought that this was a joke. I thought that there's no way that this could possibly work, and I set out to debunk it. And in trying to debunk it, I wound up convincing myself this is the real deal.
Yeah, how could a tower made out of plastic buckets with holes in the sides could do this?
What is the difference between this kind of plastic and PVC plastic? Mm-hmm. Why can't you just make your own? Mm-hmm. Well, there's a thing called plasticization. When sunlight hits PVC, it creates a gas. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. This is a food grade plastic. There is no gas when sunlight hits it.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
And this unit will probably last maybe 5-10 years. Mm-hmm. If it's taken care of. I don't see an end to the cycle. I mean, I don't see, it sounds like a lot of money to start with, but when you start comparing, a head of basil in the store costs about $10. Mm-hmm. If you had 20 head, that would be $20 right off of the get-go. And the thing about growing your own is you don't remove the plant, you cut the plant and let the plant grow back out again.
Oh, okay.
So you have a mustard green that you harvest maybe 3 times, 4 times in a year. And it's in the same pot. It hasn't changed.
Yeah. Now, at your house, what kind of space, we just have a couple of minutes left, what kind of space are you operating with this in?
It's 4 foot by 8 foot.
About 4 foot by 8 foot. So if you had several scattered around and so on, you could have several.
No, there's 3 in a line. That's it.
Oh, 3 in a line is all that you would want to be doing. Okay.
Well, that's all I have right now.
That's what you have. Okay.
Right.
Well, it's so good to have you talking about this. You're in a field I know